Well, the tree's early.
The tree is early.
Because we're going to be traveling. So
Don't tell them that. They're going to find us and stalk us.
I don't think we're that important.
We're not?
No.
I think we're important.
Yeah, I think you're important.
I think you're important too.
Thanks.
This is the moonnco podcast, where we help you take back control of your well-being and regain your mental clarity. Join our growing community for resources, support, and guidance at moonnco.com. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice.
Welcome back to another episode of the moonnco podcast. We've got a really interesting episode for you today, and it's one that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people. It's something that we've been talking a lot about, we've been working through. As you can see, our Christmas tree is up. We're gearing up for the holidays. And there's been a lot recently in our, at least in American society with the election and as holidays approach. It's been a time of a lot of deep reflection for me personally, and I think for a lot of folks out there. And so we wanted to do an episode to sort of talk about how you handle challenging things in general, right? But primarily focused on when others have opinions or beliefs or there's dynamics in relationships that are difficult for you to address or to sort of process internally. How do you go about that, right? When there is something, as large as an election that, you can cast your vote, you can get involved through social advocacy, but by and large, a lot of it's out of our control. And similarly, when you're traveling for the holidays, inevitably you're around family members and friends of family that maybe you don't interact with at a very high frequency, or there's things in the past that have caused turmoil in that relationship. And so the idea of spending a meal with them can bring about a lot of anxiety. So how do you kind of address that? So we were talking through that a little bit more. But one thing I thought would be good to kind of just kick us off is when we think about stressful events or we think about things that, cause us anxiety, what are some sort of holistic options that people can explore to kind of just level set and get a good baseline for relaxation?
I think, first of all, mindfulness, right? Like being aware and just being present and trying to practice gratitude, I think, too, of like, okay, this situation might have uncomfortable times, or I had a conversation with so-and-so and it was uncomfortable, or I know I'm talking to this person, right? And just kind of, we'll get into this more, but, like practicing that. But like physically, right? Like I think there's things you can do to make sure that you're, in the best mental state you can be, right? Which we talk about some of that a lot, but there's different things like ashwagandha, right, is one. There's ashwagandha tea, there's different supplements. That's just something like if you have travel coming up or situations where it might be just combative, right, or tense, like just preparing yourself for some of those.
One thing I will say on ashwagandha before we move on to the next one is that ashwagandha has a compounding effect. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to use ashwagandha or you want to explore ashwagandha, there's two things that we should caution. The first is that you're going to want to lead up time to the travel event. So It's not really something that works, quickly or immediately. It's not like a CBD that, after an hour or so, it kind of calms you down. You need to kind of have it in your system for about a week or two before it really starts to take hold. So, if we are talking about holiday travel, like 2 weeks before, just start doing an ashwagandha tea in the morning or throughout your day, and do that daily. And then the other side of it is that you're also not supposed to be on ashwagandha long term. So it's not a supplement that you want to have sort of indefinitely as part of your regimen. It's really sort of to amp up and focus if you do have something that's coming up in a sort of fixed time set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, or a couple great points. Also, like one thing that I like to do is we have a cold plunge here, and that it does a lot of things for you. But if you think about it, it kind of gets you into this mental state of I can do hard things, I can deal with hard situations, right? And like once you've done that, if I like to do in the morning, and then it's like everything else for the rest of the day like seems a little easier, right? Because you did this hard thing in the morning. And that can be a great tactic with a lot of things, right? You've done a cold plunge, do a cold shower, right? Do cold water at the end of your shower. different things to stimulate your vagus nerve, right? Which is a super vital nerve that runs through your body that really can help calm you down. Some people, you know, if you're having anxiety or you're having an attack, I've seen people take an ice pack or something frozen and actually hold it here on your chest or near where your vagus nerve runs through, and it can actually help you calm down, right? So, you know, I'm not saying to do that in the middle of a conversation with someone. It could be a little weird.
Excuse me, I need to get my ice block.
I need to go jump in some water, some ice water. But, you know, things that, practices that you can do, like Nick said, like not just the day of, but, you know, mindfulness things that you can do leading up to some of these holidays, which obviously are joyful and fun. It's great to see people, but, you know, we're just trying to normalize the other side of it, of like there could be tense conversations, like Nick said, with the election. Like there is just a lot of tension, I feel like, in the air, no matter if you have zero issues with your family or many issues with your family, right? Like it's just, there's just this natural in the air. So I think being prepared with some of these routines that you can build into your routine ahead of time can help to kind of prepare you for some of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's spot on. And another thing, I find the whole vagus nerve really, really fascinating, and we could do a whole, and we probably should do a whole episode specifically on that. You know, I will say for me personally, like I'll end my shower with, you know, depending on how strong I feel that day, 10 to 30 seconds of just before I get out of the shower. Once you know, I like extremely hot showers. So, you know, once, you know, I'm at the end and I'm about to get out, I'll take 10 to 30 seconds and just turn the dial as cold as it can go. And it really does, you know, it's, you know, it's shocking to the system, but what it does is it, as you said, it helps you to know you can overcome hard things. And it's sort of that vagus nerve, when it resets, it starts to sort of recalibrate, if you will, what should elicit a fight or flight response. So when you put your body in that, intentionally put your body in that state of shock, it sort of sets the tone for the day of like, okay, like this is a really hard thing that's weird that shouldn't happen to our body, and like this is something we should pay attention to. And then when, you know, you have a conversation or someone makes an off comment that doesn't really sit well with you, the parameter from a psychological perspective of like how damaging that is to your body or how much of a threat that really is to your body sort of gets recalibrated a little bit when you can kind of give that vagus nerve a little bit of a jolt. So it's something that I've employed. I know you do cold plunges. So it is a really helpful tactic. So transitioning a little bit in terms of how we deal with difficult topics, right, and how we deal with difficult conversations. And you know, we put a post about this I think earlier this month, or it's coming out. But I recorded a short reel on this a couple days ago, and it's something I've been meditating a lot on, which is, you know, when there are thoughts or there are opinions that challenge your belief system, what are you supposed to do with that, right? Because there's this really fine line of you don't really want to sacrifice your core values. You don't want, you know, and there are some things in life that you feel so adamantly about that it's very hard to sway your opinion on it. And it can cause a lot of turmoil when things maybe don't go your way, or maybe things do go your way, but you're aware of, you know, half the population that views things in a different perspective and is fighting hard for something to be in a different perspective, right? And that's sort of where we are. And that's not just an American problem. I think that's a global problem at this point. There is just this division of culture war, if you will. And so regardless of which side of the aisle you sit on, you're faced daily with these principles and ideas that are staunchly against your core beliefs. And so I've really been reflecting a lot on sort of what to do with that energy and how to sit with that. And, you know, one of the things that has really been beneficial for me personally is, and you hit on it on the top of the episode, which is this idea of gratitude. And how do you show love and compassion to something that you're so vehemently against, right? And for me, what I've sort of come to is there's beauty in appreciating an opposing value, even if you don't agree with it, right? If you subscribe to the belief that everybody's connected and we're all human beings and we're all just trying to get by and we're all just trying to do the best things that we feel is right for ourselves, for our family, you know, for our safety, etc., everybody has those core missions and those core things that propel them, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a human species, our sole goal as a tribe and as an organism, if you will, is to ensure that we continue to thrive, and we put systems in place and thoughts and processes in place so that we continue to thrive. And so when those challenging beliefs come your way, it's very easy to say, I'm opposed to that. I don't like that because that person has a red shirt on or that person has a blue shirt on. Or I don't like that person's approach to how they communicate things. Or it's very easy to pick those things out, but you're actually doing more harm to yourself by taking that approach. Because by and large, you're not going to change that person. You're not going to change a person's beliefs. You're not going to change anything about them. But what you can do is you can try to understand them. And in doing so, the hope is that you'll be able to communicate your perspective, and we can get a little closer to where we used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago, where there was more of a focus on the middle, right? And I think, that for me has really been something that I've been meditating on a lot, because it's difficult to show appreciation for something that you're against. But when you take yourself out of it and you take your ego out of it and you say, okay, I'm part of a larger collective, and like it or not, agree with it or disagree with it, that is a perspective that exists in this world. And because it exists in this world, there's something that I personally can learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that's helpful to people, but for me personally, that's kind of how I've been dealing with a myriad of things, not just the election related. And similarly, as it relates to sort of relationships and coming on the holidays and spending time with family, I've been exploring a similar philosophy, which is first and foremost, above kind of all of the things I just mentioned, is being still and being in the present moment. And you'll notice that if you take yourself out of the reactions and put the emotions aside and allow yourself to just be in that moment, you'll appreciate that time with that family member who you don't see a lot, or that or that you have chosen to separate yourself from, or that you appreciate that time together. Because even if it is something that you may not fully have the strongest relationship with, that is still family. Those are still people that, at a time where everyone's gathering around a table and breaking bread, showing appreciation on, if we're talking about Thanksgiving, or Christmas and the whether you follow Christianity and you believe in the birth of Jesus or not, that whole time is about love. It's about peace. It's about cherishing those moments with people who are special to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if there are rifts, even if there are things that have caused turmoil in that relationship, you have actively taken the time, or you've made the decision to be with that individual during the holidays. And so that in and of itself is a testament to, that is a good thing for your body, for your soul, for your spirituality, to be appreciative of being in that moment. And even if there are things that are said or opinions that are thrown out there that you disagree with, I would challenge you to really be in that present moment. And even if they are uncomfortable feelings that you need to sit with, embrace that. Because those negative feelings, and I say this a lot, but those negative feelings that you feel, that turmoil that you feel, is there to remind you that there is happiness, there is joy, there is gratitude. And you can't have one without the other. So even if it is a tense, 2 hours or whatever it is, and you're just like, I just can't wait to get out of here because this is too much, it still gives you that time to say, you know what, I'm thankful for the opportunity to practice mindfulness right now. I'm thankful for the opportunity to learn how to feel gratitude or feel joy or feel peace when I'm in a situation that isn't directly giving me that, isn't directly giving me comfort. The more we push ourselves out of our comfort zone, the stronger we become.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I'd be curious to kind of get your perspective on that and kind of dive into it a little more, and then also kind of, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but just curious to talk about, any physical techniques that you can think of, kind of circling back to that might be beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of that. I think we're, all in situations sometimes that are out of our control, that are uncomfortable, and we, like Nick said, sometimes you don't want to deal with it. You want to push things aside or put a rug over top of it, right, and not have to look at it. And I think that it is important to, like Nick said, like just take yourself out of it and really try to appreciate the other side of it, right, and what they're bringing to the table and maybe what their opinion is, even if it doesn't agree with what you think. Like Nick said, we all are human and we're all connected in this universe, and I think we've forgotten that in a lot of ways, right? And like there's been so much, I feel like, division depending on whatever side you're on, right? There's a lot of focus on the negative instead of like, okay, how do we get back to all being on the same team here, because ultimately we're all on the human team. So I think that's definitely something to think about, especially at the holidays when like Nick said, if you don't live near family or you have a strained relationship with your family, it can be very, I think, cause a lot of anxiety going into it. And I think it's just do your best. Everyone's just doing their best. Try to, appreciate everyone for what they bring to the table, and try to be present in that moment, and not worry about the past, not worry about the future, not bring up the past, not bring up the future. Just focus on the now, right? The whole point of it is to spend time with the people that are important to you. And I think that that's important, right? And if you have relationships, family or otherwise, that are, I would say, like, to the other extreme, right? If there are relationships that really bring a lot of toxicity to your life, like if they're family or not, you need to evaluate that, right? And just because you're supposed to do something at a certain day during the year, like if it doesn't serve you, then don't do it. But Absolutely. I do think like there's a lot of, that's an extreme, right? But like there's a lot of in between where it's like, oh, is this going to come up? Is this going to happen? And I think that's very common, and I hope a lot of people can resonate with that. It's just normal life, but I think it's being mindful, being present, setting yourself up for success in it, and not letting it, and overcast the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think you made a good point, and just to reiterate, everything that I said isn't to say that you don't have the right to remove yourself from toxic situations, mm-hmm. right? You certainly do, and I think it's important to challenge yourself, but at the same time, if you have evaluated a relationship, or a relationship is harmful to you psychologically or physically, it's important that you take care of yourself and remove yourself from that situation if need be. It's great to take the high road, but not at the expense of your own well-being.
For sure, yeah. I think to touch on the kind of physical aspect or exercise or things you can do to help reduce stress, especially if you're traveling, people's routines are crazy and off. We're getting ready to travel, so I'm thinking about that too, of like, okay, how do I keep some of my non-negotiables going, right? And some of those are, doing yoga, right? I mean, we talk about this a lot, but I hope, like, if you haven't tried yoga or you haven't tried meditation, that if you've been listening for a bit, like, you just give it a try. If you're like, you know what, tomorrow is this day when I'm going to see this person, or today at work I had this interaction with so-and-so and it didn't go well, and now I have to talk to them tomorrow. And you just, taking some time, doing some mindfulness. I like to do gratitude meditations. I like to do guided meditations more. That's just more what works for me right now. And so I like to do a gratitude one. I actually made an effort to do one every day for a few weeks. And I noticed it really did make me more grateful for the things I have and not focus on the negative. And I think that that's really powerful, to step back and say, not only am I grateful for the basic things that we actually take for granted, like having electricity, having running water, having, most of us a nice warm house over our head, for sure. But also like the little things, like, watching my daughter practice a new skill, or something that maybe could be seen as a negative thing. Like you come out of it and you realize like, oh my gosh, that was actually really necessary and really positive, right? So I think having that practice of, meditation, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be whatever. There's so many free meditation apps that you can use that can guide you through them if you're not sure even where to start. And you could literally put in anything that you want to focus on. And I'm sure there's a meditation you can find to cover it. But starting with a gratitude one, even a body scan one, to kind of just take yourself out of all the noise and focus on your body, I think can be really powerful. Doing yoga, just something to calm yourself, put yourself into that parasympathetic state of I'm safe, everything's fine. But also, being active, right? Like exercising. You're traveling, maybe you're staying in other people's houses or in a hotel, and it's not, it's just not the same. Go take a walk, right? I'm going to go for a walk. I think it's perfectly fine to say I want to go for a walk by myself, right? Like people can do that. Take time for yourself. Or if you want to connect with someone, hey, would you go for a walk with me? Let's just go for a walk and be outside. And I think people underestimate how powerful that can be, like walking in nature, being outside, getting sunlight, even if it's colder out where you are, like getting that sunlight, it can have such a huge effect on you. And I don't think that it should be underestimated, right? Especially when routines are off and things are wacky, schedules are out of whack. Just making time to take some time for yourself if you can be a really, really helpful thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's spot on. And you touched on a lot of, really, really good meditation techniques. And I would just add, a couple to those, like certainly gratitude meditations. I would sort of parallel that or parlay that with journaling. Can be very beneficial, especially if you're going down the gratitude path. It can be really good to have that documented, so that you can reflect on it, later on.
And just the act of writing things out, is so helpful. Even if you burn it afterward, like it doesn't matter. Like it does, but for some, just that act has been shown. Just writing things out and getting them out of your head and feeling like you're telling a story and telling your story can be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Along with guided meditations, as you mentioned, a more advanced technique would be so when you're sitting in a formal meditation posture, a lot of people think that the goal is to stop thoughts from occurring, which that's somewhat true. But one technique is to actually meditate on a thought. So if there is a relationship or a conversation or a belief system or an outcome that's undesirable, you actually sort of try to force yourself to think about those things, and you actually try to force yourself to have an emotional response to those things, and you sit with that emotion and that response, and really try to understand and label what those feelings are, what that response is, where it's originating. And you don't want to necessarily like psychoanalyze yourself in this time, but what you do want to do is you want to walk away from the meditation session feeling as though you've embraced that thing that's causing you turmoil. It's not easy. It's something that I'm sort of just starting my journey on. But it does help to make it not this scary thing that's over here that I'm fearful of, and bring it in a little bit more intimately so that you can understand your relationship with it better, and you can understand how to respond to it in a healthier way. So it's another technique that I'm sure there are guided meditations on this sort of concept of sitting with difficult emotions, and I find it's best to do that type of meditation when the stimulus is like super active, if you can. So like for me, oftentimes 2-3 o'clock in the morning, I will just wake up with a thought about a thing that's giving me anxiety, right? Like it happens with work stuff, it happens with personal family stuff, it happens with election related things, and so I try very hard, whether I get out of bed and go to my meditation cushion, or whether I just lay in bed and just allow myself to meditate in that space. When those times occur, I really try to not shy away from those feelings, and I really try to bring myself to center and be mindful on what I'm feeling, experiencing, thinking about that thing in that moment. And ultimately, you hit the nail on the head. Meditation shouldn't be complicated. Meditation should be easy. And, I talk about, Mingyur Rinpoche a lot. He sort of talks about this idea of meditation and this analogy of, your glasses, right? And people will take their glasses and they'll put them on the top of their head, and they'll spend however long, where are my glasses, feeling all this anxiety, looking under tables, drawers, wherever, and the glasses are on your head the whole time, right? And really, when you think about meditation, like, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to just be in the present moment as much as you can. And there's going to be ebbs and flows with that. But this technique in particular will sort of break you of the mindset of that mindfulness and meditation is this time to just be peaceful and calm. Like, yes, that is a benefit of meditation. Yes, that is an ultimate goal. But really, when we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about being appreciative and in the moment and feeling love and compassion for everything we experience at any given moment. And so when you have those difficult times, I would challenge you to embrace them and sit with those emotions, as opposed to trying to, just sort of push them aside for 10 to 15 minutes. Because then because it's easy when you're in a controlled environment to say, okay, I'm going to listen to a babbling creek and someone who has a nice soothing voice for 15 minutes because I just don't want to think about that things. Great, that's fine, that's wonderful. That's an excellent meditation experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to help you in those uncontrolled environments, when you're at the family dinner, or when you're talking to a work colleague, or when you're facing opinions and beliefs that challenge you. You can't just tune out. You can't just say, I got to go listen to,
Right.
whatever. You kind of just have to be there.
Yeah.
And so training yourself when you are in a controlled environment to deal with those emotions can be really beneficial. So with that, I think we're going to close. I will take this opportunity, since we've been talking a lot about guided meditations, to let you know that moonnco is going to start producing some guided meditations. I am super excited about it.
Me too.
I've been working in the studio for the past 4 or 5 months, coming up with ideas and concepts. Some of you may know or may have read on our bio, I have a background in music composition, so I've been working on this live meditation experience that's going to basically bring in soundscapes and solfeggio frequencies and all the good things with meditation music, and bring that to a live stream experience where I'll be composing music real time. We'll be using loops, doing some fun things with shaman beats and shaman rhythms, along with providing a guided meditation on a given topic. So that's going to be coming out. I'm hoping to roll it out, I'm going to say by December, but if not, definitely in the new year. January is my firm deadline to start live streaming and get this set up. So there'll be more to come on that, but I hope to see you over there because I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And I hope you join me. So that's it for now. Be kind, be well, enjoy the holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.